And now, it's time for another edition of the Sports and Metal Podcast. We talk hard-hitting sports and bone-crunching metal. Sports and Metal. Because sports and metal go better together. Now here's your host, Jason Voorhees. And Aaron Savage.
Oh, yeah!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports and Metal Podcast. We are your hosts. This is Aaron Savage. With me, as always, my partner in crime in the Phillies hat, Mr. Jason Voorhees.
What's going on?
What's going on, Jay? How are you this week?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Good, man. I'm excited to do the show. I checked you out on the Chips and Dish podcast on the All About the Birds network. This week, you were a guest, and that's why you're wearing your Phillies hat. You guys were talking some Phillies, and I watched it. And you guys, the point of your guys' debate was: is Aaron Nola an ace or not? And in watching that, I got fired up, dude. Because you know what I realized, Jay? You know what I realized?
What?
What I realized is, I'm not sure if the question is Aaron Nola an ace or not? I think the real question is, does the ace exist in the modern game? I don't know.
I mean, that was kind of like somewhat my point that I was getting at, and I probably didn't hit hard enough on that point. But I mean, the fact is that you have, only a few elite guys in any sport at any given time at any position. So, if you're looking at an ace to be, if Jake DeGrom level is what an ace is, then there's not many aces out there. That I guess that's.
I guess my point is, if you have a Jake DeGrom in today's game, what does it get you? The Mets' record with Jacob DeGrom on the mound in the last 3 years is under 500. We were talking about this the other day. Jacob DeGrom, I think, has 18 starts career against the Phillies, and his career record is 8-1, which leaves 10 no decisions? Because nobody's allowed to pitch, and that's not a knock on Jacob DeGrom. That's a knock on today's game. So I don't know if the debate is whether or not Aaron Nola is an ace. I think it's the question of are the Phillies allowing Aaron Nola to be an ace? Now, Aaron Nola didn't pitch too well yesterday against the Mets, but he pitched good enough to get a win if they just let him go one more inning. They had a big lead, but there you go. They took him out after 4 innings. Now, granted, he didn't have his best stuff, but in the past, isn't that what part of what made an ace an ace? Like, if you have your gun on the mound and he doesn't have his best stuff, he battles through 5-6 innings. He gives you a chance to win, and you pull the game out and you win. And then in the other starts, you hope he has his A game, and he gives you 7, 8, 9 innings, spins a 2-hit shutout, and that used to equate to something we won't ever see again, or very rare, 20-game winners. I mean, it's going to be – I know we've had them fairly recently, but it's like one per season if you're lucky.
I mean, I got to be honest. I got to be absolutely honest with you. I am mind-boggled that you could have guys that, back in the day, Nolan Ryan would throw 180 pitches, and it was like nothing. And today, you're right. Aaron Nola had 93 pitches, and they pulled him in the 4th inning. Now, like I said, you got it. He wasn't pitching, he didn't have his best stuff. But come on, man.
Dude, he was certainly pitching well enough to get 5 innings to earn a victory.
Exactly.
That's one of the main things, dude. Where has the pride gone in Major League Baseball? Getting a win, which here's another big thing we're going to get into, but for starters, getting a win used to matter. Not because wins and losses were the be-all, end-all stats. Like in today's game with analytics, wins don't matter. And guess what? Me and you are going to talk about how that's true because it's a byproduct of the game, but not because it's good, not because it's a good thing. My point is, Aaron Nola didn't have his best stuff yesterday, but he pitched good enough to earn a win when the Phillies had, I think they had a 4-1 lead at the time. I'd have to go back and check. Don't hold me to that. But they had a lead. You're going to tell me that Aaron Nola couldn't throw 100 to 105 pitches and at least earn a win? There used to be a pride in that where a pitcher would not want to come out and a manager wouldn't take the guy out. He would let him get through the 5th inning to get the win because it was prideful to get a win. Now it's like nobody gives a shit.
It's a
absolutely
disgrace.
insane. And then we go back to DeGrom. DeGrom won 2 Cy Youngs one year with 10 wins and the other with 11 wins or whatever it was. Again, through no fault of Jacob DeGrom. It's because he's a victim of today's game. Opening day, let's go more into Mets-Phillies. Monday night, the Mets opener. It wasn't the Phillies opener. Obviously, it was the Mets opener because their season was delayed due to the COVID outbreak with the Nationals. But so it was the Mets opener, Monday night, Mets-Phillies at Citizens Bank Park. DeGrom on the bump. Jay, we were texting a little bit that night. It was the night you were on the Chips and Dish podcast. And I even saw you guys on that show basically acknowledged that the Phillies were losing. And you said, is DeGrom on the mound? And you guys were like, it's over. Because it should have been over. If the Mets have a 2-0 lead with Jacob DeGrom through 6, having thrown 77 pitches, there's no excuse that the Mets would lose that baseball game. Zero, zilch, none at all. And I'm sick and tired of fans of all teams always blaming the bullpen. It's not the bullpen's fault.
It's the manager.
It's the manager's fault for putting the bullpen in. These guys are in the bullpen for a reason. Because they're not good enough to start, with few exceptions like your elite closers. And even those guys are there because they have ridiculously great stuff for an inning, but they're not built to pitch deep into a game. You can't throw like Aroldis Chapman for 8 innings. It wouldn't work. You got to blow his arm out in half a season. The bottom line is there's a reason guys are in the bullpen and they're not in the rotation because they're not as good. But let's take it a step further. Let's say you had a bullpen of 7 Mariano Riveras, right? Let's just make this example. You have a bullpen of 7 clones of Mariano Rivera, arguably the greatest relief pitcher that ever played, right? That's all you have in your bullpen. And you have Jacob DeGrom on the mound with his track record, tossing up zeros, unhittable through 6. You take him out after 6 innings like the Mets did Monday night with only 77 pitches. That's what he had when they took him out. 77. That used to be your first spring training start. God, but we'll get it, whatever. 77 pitches. The Mets take Jacob DeGrom out after 6 innings. Now, again, you have 7 Mariano Riveras in your bullpen. Even if you did, you don't know when you make a pitching change that every guy's going to have it that night. Just like Jacob DeGrom once in a while could go out and have a bad start. You could be the greatest in the world, and sometimes it's not your day. So in the modern game, when pitchers are not allowed to pitch, starting pitchers, and teams are constantly using 3, 4, 5, 6 relief pitchers every single night, your chances of losing a game are exponentially greater because, again, if you have 7 Marianos and you bring in 6 of them, one of them might have an off night. And that's all it takes to lose a baseball game. So my point is, you go with the guy that has it that night, which was Monday night, Jacob DeGrom. And it's not like he threw 110 pitches through 6. I get that. It's the first start of the season. If he had, you take him out. But he had 77 pitches, Jay. And Mets manager Luis Rojas was quoted prior to that game saying that they had DeGrom on a 90 to 100 pitch count. Okay? That drives me nuts too because I hate that. It's not enough. But I get it. I'm willing to meet you halfway. If there's going to be pitch counts and it's not going to be what it was, I know guys aren't going to go 9 all the time. I'll deal with it. But don't tell me that the guy's on a 90 to 100 pitch count and then you pinch hit for him in the bottom of the 6th with 77 pitches. 77 pitches. He could have thrown 13 more pitches to get through the 7th and still have only had 90 pitches, which was a good chance he would have done that because he's Jacob DeGrom and he was dealing. He was averaging only 13, 14 pitches per inning. So he could have theoretically thrown 103 pitches and gotten through 8. And then you only would have had to bring in Edwin Diaz, your closer. And again, your chances of winning that game are exponentially higher because DeGrom has it, and then you only bring in 1 relief pitcher. That's me even meeting you halfway because to me, I'm a fan of the old school game. It would be unheard of for a pitcher. Jay, there was a time, we're only 45 years old. I'll be 45 in April. You'll be 45 in June. Bottom line is, there was a time in our life where a starting pitcher would never come out with a shutout unless he was hurt because it was a pride in throwing a shutout. It's unfathomable. I mean, it was only in the last decade where I started accepting that guys are going to come out with a shutout. Now I'm having to accept that guys are going to come out after 5, 6 innings when they're getting paid $35 million a year and they're your ace.
It's disgusting.
So we go back to Aaron Nola. We go back to Jacob DeGrom. What is an ace? I don't know, dude. I don't know because nobody's allowed to be an ace, with very few exceptions. Maybe Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer come to mind in the last 5 to 10 years, because even more so than Jacob deGrom, those guys have at least been allowed to pitch. Now, they haven't been throwing 15, 20 complete games like would have been the case 15 years ago, but maybe 5, 6 complete games, generally giving you 7, 8 innings. I've seen Verlander throw upwards of 245 innings. So, I mean, he's the last of a dying breed.
I would say probably today Garrett Cole has to be in the conversation too. Only because,
but that's if you're talking aces by today's definition. But dude, even Garrett Cole, I'll look. I think he's got one career complete game.
No, I agree.
Averages 6 innings per start.
I agree. So I think the point is, and this is what we're trying to say, is that what is an ace? Because like you said, the difference now is that, I mean, to me, I don't think an ace necessarily has to throw 100 miles an hour. And that's my opinion. We had guys like, I grew up watching a guy named Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine. Yep. And both of those guys didn't throw – they didn't even throw mid-90s. So,
No, they threw high 80s, maybe 91, 92.
So I don't believe that you have to throw hard. I do see the point that was being made is that, today's day, it seems like that's all that pitchers are trying to do. Like all these guys that are coming up, they're throwing that hard. Now that's the way that they're being groomed. But there's somehow there's a disconnect, because there's no way you could tell me that all of a sudden these guys can't throw and they're so ultra, conservative and ultra worried about injuries that there's got to be a way that we can get back to, like you said, at least meet in a middle ground.
A middle ground.
Because it's disgusting to me and that was the perfect example, Aaron Nola. And then I'll go back just 2 years ago, 2019, Gabe Kapler took Aaron Nola out with 68 pitches in the 6th inning, and the Phillies were winning 3-0.
That's like DeGrom won Monday night.
Exactly. It's every year, and it's with every ace even. So to me, like you said, how can you even compare, and how can we quantify what an ace is when baseball has totally ruined what a pitcher is?
Yeah, because there's no let me just piggyback that. Take games where like maybe it's Aaron Nola or it's Jacob deGrom. They have 6 shutout innings with a very low pitch count. And then the leadoff hitter in the 7th, say the leadoff hitter in the 7th gets a cheap dunk single, cheap hit. So the guy's not pitching bad, but he gives up a hit. And then the next guy walks, right? First walk, the guy gives up. So there's first and second, nobody out in the 7th. You have a deGrom or a Nola, or whoever it may be on the bump. Maybe they have 78 pitches at this point, and it's the 7th inning. So they still have a lot in the tank. What happened to letting a guy pitch out of a jam? In today's game, that's an automatic hook. No matter who you are, you're the best pitcher in baseball. The 6 shutout innings, you give up a hit and a walk leading up the 7th. That's basically an automatic hook in today's game. Guys aren't getting the opportunity to get out of their own jams. And what happens is a subpar relief pitcher comes into that inning and pours gasoline on a fire. And say you had a 2-0 lead in this game, right? Next thing you know, he gives up a double. Then he gives up another double. Then he gives up a home run. Now it's 5-2. You're losing. And your starter, who just got yanked, is charged with 2 of those earned runs. So in other words, his ERA now doesn't look good because he only got 6 innings and he gave up 2 runs. That's a 3 earned run average. So the stats are even skewed because you're taking these guys out of games. And they're getting no decisions. They're getting losses. You keep taking guys out of games. That's why nobody gets decisions anymore. What happened to guys when they had seasons where there was 23-12? Not even that long ago, dude. Not even that long ago. Even if you just go back 31 years, I believe it was the 1990 season when Bob Welch won 27 games for the Athletics. Now, granted, that's 31 years. That's a decent chunk of change. But it just seems like yesterday. But even if you go back to the late 90s, I remember Schilling had like a 16 complete game season. It wasn't that long ago we were seeing some guys have like 10. I remember James Shields.
Maybe Halladay.
Halladay, too. I mean, consistently put up.
Halladay, I think, had 12.
I didn't even know he got to double digits, but I remember James Shields, you would never think of. With Tampa Bay, of maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, had double-digit complete games. You don't see any team now basically have 5 complete games within a decade. That's how much it has changed.
It's sad.
Let me pull something up I looked up on Fangraphs, Jay. This is going to mind boggle you. If we just go back to the 2015 season, starting pitchers were averaging 5.72 innings per start, which it was already going way down by the time the 2015 season rolled around. And it was down to 5.72. Keep this in mind. Baseball created a statistic like 20, 25 years ago, the quality start, which is a joke. A quality start means you pitch 6 innings and you give up 3 earned runs or less. I don't know what moron decided that was a quality start, but that's the definition of it. That was the beginning of the dumbing down of pitching when they came up with that stupid stat. Because I remember, like, guys, when I was a kid throwing 6 innings and it was like an early hook, like a rookie in the first major league game. But hold on. So a quality start means if you give up 3 runs in 6 innings, you have a 4.5 ERA. That's quality. Wow. 4.5? Wow. That's quality. Get the hell out of here. 4.5 ERA, get out. But that's the dumbing down of the game. So that's a quality start. So as of 2015, starters weren't even pitching deep enough into a game on the average to qualify for that ridiculously stupid quality start statistic. They were averaging 5.72 innings per start. By 2019, that was down to 5.2 innings pitched per start. And in 2020, granted, it was a strange year. They didn't have a proper spring training, yada, yada. But it was down to 4.73 innings per start in 2020. I'm not going to be surprised if I were to look this up for the 2021 season, and we're not far off of the 2020 numbers. I don't think it's just because of COVID. I think this is the trend. This is where we're headed. We have openers now, Jay. Another ridiculous thing. Guys throwing an inning to open a game, and then you bring in your quote-unquote starter, and he only gives you 4 innings out of relief.
Yeah,
what are we doing?
That's like a Gabe Kapler type decision there. But I agree. I think that was the beginning. When that was – I think analytics was the beginning to the end of what we know as baseball, because I can't stand analytics. I really can't. I mean, listen, I understand, the numbers guys, because analytics have kind of basically taken over every sport. But, like, what about the sanctity of the game? Like I said, I'd much rather see a guy go 7 innings, give up 4 runs, and, end up with a loss than a guy that goes 3 innings and the team wins. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I agree with that, but even to take it a step further, and I know you agree with me when I say this, it also comes down to wanting to win or lose with your best. In other words, if you have your starter go 7 innings, give up 4 runs, and you lose that game 4-3, you know that you deserve to lose. You lost. You had your best guy on the mound, and sometimes you got to tip your cap. Sometimes the other team is just better. But when you have a Jacob deGrom on the mound throwing 77 pitches through 6, and you bring in bullpen that just pisses all over the performance and you lose 5-2, you know as well as I, like, I'm a Mets fan on Monday night, we didn't deserve to lose that game. That's on Luis Rojas. That punches you in the gut, dude. Those are painful losses. You as a Phillies fan have experienced the same type of thing. Every fan of any team in Major League Baseball experiences it daily. It's disgusting. It's a gut punch to the fans, to the team. It's a deflating blow. Like, imagine being in the dugout on that team. You have your big gun on the mound. Those are the nights you expect to win. Like when the Mets would throw Tom Seaver, you expected to win because Tom Seaver was on the mound. Imagine Tom Seaver in today's game. What a waste of talent it would be. What a waste. How do the people in the dugout, the other players in that dugout, feel when they work their asses off? And you're winning a game 2-3-0 after 6. And the manager pulls a stud out to bring in some second-rate bum that's been on 5 teams in the last 2.5 seasons with a career 5.5 ERA, and now you're down 5-2. That doesn't deflate a team. So you know what I mean? As a fan, you feel the same way. You can accept losing with a guy going 7 innings, 4 or 5 runs. I remember a game against the Mets and the Phillies. Let's bring the Mets and Phillies back up. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember a great game. It was a great Mets win. But as a Phillies fan, if I lost that game, I'd be like, hey, we lost with our gun. I remember a game, I think it was like 4-0 Phillies in the 9th inning. Curt Schilling was on the mound. I wish I could remember the game, but I could look it up, but I don't want to do it on the show because it'll waste time. But it was a Mets-Phillies game. Curt Schilling was on the mound. I think it was like 4-0 Phillies in the 9th. And the Mets had a 5-run rally at home in the bottom of the 9th to beat Curt Schilling. They won 5-4, and the Phillies never went to the bullpen. Schilling lost that game. In hindsight, that might have been an extreme example because it was the 9th inning and maybe Schilling had gotten tired. Probably would have been prudent to make a pitching change, but they didn't. They said, Curt Schilling's our best pitcher. We're going to win or lose with this guy on the mound. the bottom line is it just shows you the difference of mentality between then and now. Whether or not that was the right decision, the Phillies lost with their best. So as a Phillies fan, I don't think it would hurt as bad as if Curt Schilling just gave up a leadoff single in the ninth, and then the bullpen gave up 5 runs and you lost 5-4. That would sting. That would sting because you're like, oh my God, I don't think Schilling would have gave up 5 runs if they left him in. You would have, at least with Schilling, you know that you did your best and that was it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember that game. And the thing about Schilling, like you said, that you know, people might not like him as a person. He could be a real asshole. But you know what? As a pitcher, I mean, he was dominant. Talk about dominant. Talk about an ace. That was an ace. And, you know, and that's probably the last guy on the Phillies that I can remember that would, well, besides obviously Roy Halladay, but
yeah,
the last guy that would kind of go, you know, 9 innings on a consistent basis. Because like you said, I think he had 15 complete games. It might have been 94 or 95. But, I mean, I can't understand why it's gotten so bad. And it just bothers me as a baseball fan because I'm a purist. I mean, we've talked about it how many times about how fun it was to watch those like 85, 86 Cardinals teams and the Mets and like teams that actually played all around baseball, you know, with good pitching, played great defense. It wasn't just about hitting home runs or, you know, striking out or walking. It was about getting on base. It was about stealing. It was about, you know, giving yourself up. What happened to that, man? I'm like, I hate it. I can't stand it. Yeah, I really, literally, I don't even like, I'm professing here right now. I a lot of times don't even watch full baseball games anymore because of this.
You're nailed it. I used to watch games in their entirety.
I used to watch every single Phillies game from beginning to end, every single game, unless I was at work. Yeah. Now it's not like that. I'm not kidding. Yeah. Like now, you know, unless it's like, you know, a matchup like a DeGrom, you know, Nola, I might tune in. But I'm not going to lie, dude. I don't watch every game because, first of all, it's 162 games. But it's the nonsense and the slop. I'm just tired, and it's boring. It is. It's super boring.
It's also 4 hours on every day. Who has 4 hours to sit and watch a baseball game? And we went full. I think with the Schilling example, we went full circle. That game I brought up, that was an ace. You won or lost with your ace, and it was the 9th inning. You don't see it, and then it goes to the next points. Baseball wants to get faster. They want to make themselves more intriguing to the younger generation. That's very short attention span. How are they going to do it when they're making 5-6 pitching changes on each team per night? You know how much time that adds to a game? It's absurd. And then you factor the style of the game. Like there's nobody putting the ball in play. It's ball 1, strike 1, ball 2, strike 2, foul pitch off, ball 3, foul pitch off, ball 4 or strike 3. There's nobody putting the ball in play. And it's walk, strikeout, unless there's a home run. It's absurd. Who's going to sit and watch 4 hours of that? You know, and you know what? And we talked about maybe meeting halfway, Jay. I think we hit on a couple great points. Obviously, one of the reasons pitchers can't go as deep into games as they used to is obviously, like you hit on it. Everybody wants to throw 100 miles an hour. You don't have to throw 100 miles an hour to be an ace. And you brought that up on the Chips and Dish show. We'll get into that in a sec with the Jamie Moore. But bottom line is you don't need to throw 100 miles an hour to be an ace. It's a great quality to have, but you could just as easily throw 100 miles an hour and suck. Kyle Farnsworth comes to mind. He threw a 100-mile-an-hour straight ball, and it was hittable. You got to have different pitches. You got to have a changeup. You got to be able to, you know, paint the corners. But even beyond that, you could have an 86-mile-an-hour fastball and be the best pitcher in the game. It's an art form, and it's a lost art form because today's mentality, everybody's just trying to throw the ball through the wall. Now, I admit, I can't expect guys to throw 8-9 innings throwing that hard. So that's part of this. But again, can we meet halfway? Can guys at least throw 6-7, throw 100, 110 pitches? You don't need to take guys out after 77 pitches. It's just so much, man. And you hit on the point that you don't need to.
I mean, how hard? Yeah, but I see, and I tend to disagree with that because Nolan Ryan threw 100, close to 100.
But he was a freak. I mean, to throw 100 miles an hour for 30 years, 25 years, that's a freak of nature.
Yes, he was a freak, but still, even so, can they go, like you said, can they go 7?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And guys can still go 9. I'm not saying they need to do it the first start of the year like they used to.
It's the mentality.
Yeah, it's a mentality. Back in the day on opening day, you'd still see some complete games. You're never going to see a complete game on opening day again.
No,
unless it's a rain-shortened game.
It's absurd. Like I said, everything about the game. I mean, obviously, we're hitting on the pitching part of it. I mean, we should do another show where we talk about the other aspects. But like I said, get back to our point. I mean, it's just night and day for me, the enjoyment level of watching a baseball game, and a lot of that has to do with for me, the part of the game that drew me to the game, I always liked the pitching side of it. Like, don't get me wrong, everyone likes to see a home run, but I mean, let's face it, today everyone hits home runs.
So it doesn't mean as much.
Exactly. So it kind of like takes away from what a home run means. Exactly, because back in the day when it was guys like Darryl Strawberry hitting 35 and it was considered, oh my God, 35 home runs is awesome. Yeah. Now it's like, Joe Schmo hits, a little second baseman hits 25 home runs and it's like, just another guy. Like, I don't understand, and like I said, and I guess that's part of the reason why for me it's so, watered down, because I always enjoyed watching pitching more. I would rather watch a dominant. That's why I love Jake DeGrom, because he is dominant. You want to talk about the word, like, talk about a guy that does not just throw hard. He paints the corners and he hits every pitch with like pinpoint accuracy. Everywhere that the catcher puts the glove, that ball is always like within not even millimeters of the glove. Like, that's what I enjoy. And it's just, I don't see that anymore. And
they don't let him pitch. They take him out of the game.
Even closers today are kind of watered down. Like, I remember watching like elite closers like Lee Smith, like guys that were like, oh my God, that guy's, and today you would think like, oh, Kenley Jansen, dude, he just blew another save the other night. Like, it's just almost like every part of every aspect in the game is becoming like, I'm trying to think of the word. It's just not what I'm used to watching, and it's not what I want to watch.
Well, it really isn't. We both know performance. I agree. When you have like a 2-1 game, part of it means that the game's quick. Those were games that were over in 2 hours and 20 minutes. That's why you could sit and watch a 9-inning game. And the ball was put in play because guys weren't walking everybody or striking everybody out. So their pitch counts remained reasonable. And they weren't necessarily throwing 100 miles an hour. So they could be conditioned to go 9. Everything about it made the game more watchable. So you take that, and then you take the offensive, like everybody loves a home run. That's what made it enjoyable when you got like an 11-10 game, because it wasn't like an every night thing. It
didn't happen every day.
A kid on a Friday night when I could stay up late, and I remember like watching like a Mets Cardinals game, and I remember saying, "Oh, I hope this game's high scoring," because it was a rare thing and it was super duper exciting when it happened. Now every game's 8-7, 9-7. It's absurd. But here's the thing: you're knocking the closers and saying that. I don't know if that's the correct argument. I just think it's the overuse of relief pitchers. Again, to my earlier point, you could be the best in the world. You're not always going to have it. So if a relief pitcher is getting into 70 games, if he doesn't have it for 5 or 6 of those games, his ERA could balloon. You could say, oh, this guy blows. But imagine a starter going 70 times in a season. Like even Jacob DeGrom could throw 32 starts and have 3 bad ones. It's perspective. It's perspective.
Well, you know what? You know what? You just made a good point, and I'll kind of counter, I'll add to that point. Like, so you said like Nolan Ryan was a freak. Well, I guess it's kind of like Mariano Rivera too, because he was a freak. He was a guy that threw 70 games, and guess
what about Mariano? He didn't throw that hard. His best pitch was his cutter, and it was all he threw. All he threw was a cutter.
Well, then that just proves our point more.
The ball where it was supposed to go.
But that just proves our point that you don't have to throw 100. You don't, because that guy's the best to ever do it, and he threw, in the 90s. But yeah, it was more about accuracy and ball placement as opposed to, the speed of the ball. Because, like you said, Those guys that throw 100 and they give up home run after home run. I mean, Nick Pivetta. Talk about a guy. I mean, he doesn't throw 100, but he had a high 90s fastball, and everyone on the myself included, I thought that guy was going to be a stud. And I mean, they just consistently put him out there, and he just consistently gave up home run after home run. Because the problem was he could throw hard, but he didn't have any other pitch. Yeah. And the pitches that he did have, he couldn't place.
I'll give you another great example of a guy that wasn't Mariano Rivera, and he did blow his share of saves, but he was also a borderline Hall of Famer, had a very long, successful career. I think he's still the all-time lefty leader in saves, and he's one of the few with 400 saves, John Franco. Dude, John Franco had like a 20-year career with the Reds and Mets, one of the all-time greats, and he threw junk. But he knew how to pitch. Dude, what about, you brought up Jamie Moyer the other night on the Chips and Dish podcast when you were making the argument about that you don't need to be throwing 100 miles an hour. Now, Jamie Moyer is a guy that came up, didn't have early success, but he stuck around. Dude, he spent a decade in Seattle, had 220-win seasons. You would never believe that Jamie Moyer has 269 career wins. The guy was able to have a very long career because he wasn't throwing a ball through the wall. He was throwing slop.
And because of that, that almost could get an average pitcher to make the Hall of Fame. Because literally,
look, borderline Hall of Famer. Yeah,
I agree.
Jamie Moyer stuck around for 2 or 3 more seasons and had like 12, 13 wins per season. He's a 300-game winner. You would never believe it. Another mind-boggling thing to know is that I looked him up the other day. He's 59 years old, man. Where's the time gone? Jamie Moyer's going to be 60. He's pitching in 2012. What? Oh, I know. God. Crazy, bro. He's a freak too, man. So, but anyway. I mean,
and a really good guy. Excellent.
Yeah, I like Jamie Moyer. Very
just
good.
Great personality, good, very caring person. And but yeah, I like I said, man, I'm over it, man. I want what we used to have, and I know we're never gonna get it back. So I'm just like, gonna have to.
It's very difficult for me to accept. It's making me not want to watch baseball, dude. It's hard. It's rough. It's my favorite sport, and they're making the sport unwatchable. And I don't understand how the powers that be in MLB don't see it. Like, they're basically destroying the sport from the inside out. They're going to make it where nobody watches it. What happens when all the older generation is gone? Like, dude, what are they doing? They're not going to have an audience.
Yeah, they're really alienating the fans, and they're kind of catering to. They want to cater to the new younger generation, but it's a mistake. Not. No, I agree.
What you're saying is not really true. They're not catering to the younger generation. There's a younger generation that's into analytics as far as people in the game.
That's what I mean.
But when you're talking about the fans, kids don't want to watch a 4-hour baseball game. Kids are on Xbox. Kids' minds are on 15 different things in 15 minutes. No kid is sitting watching a 4-hour baseball game. No kid. So baseball's not catering itself to the younger generation.
I'm talking about
alienating the younger generation where nobody's going to watch the sport at some point. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm talking about they're catering to the analytic-minded GMs and the analytic-minded people in the organizations.
Here's the sick part, Jay. These younger analytic-minded GMs and people in the game, they're not baseball people. Some of these guys are just like numbers guys that got master's degrees, and they get hired by Major League Baseball teams to crunch numbers, and they know nothing about baseball. Like, these are the guys that are like, well, statistically speaking, a pitcher's less successful his third time through the lineup, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, like Matt Klentak.
Yeah. Be that as it may, how is a pitcher going through the lineup? That's back to this ace argument. If he's your ace, how is he less successful the third time through the lineup than the guy who's been on 6 teams in the last 2.5 seasons with a 6 ERA? Clearly, that guy's not having any fucking success. So I don't know what is going on, but I'll leave you there.
It's like almost like you're not going to ever win because we won't understand. We could sit here and debate this and talk about it. We could have a 3-hour show talking about it, but it's not changing what is kind of going on. But I guess, we're never going to see, that what we thought. So back to our point, what is an ace? What would you classify an ace as?
In today's game, I guess that's the name of the podcast, aces or jokers. I don't know anymore. I think if they're all jokers and not necessarily through their own fault. Pitchers are being misused. Pitchers today aren't given the opportunity to be aces. Like we just brought up the Nola start yesterday against the Mets. He didn't have his best stuff. He was through 4 innings. If he's your ace, you get him through 5. You get him a win. You have confidence that he's going to come out in the 5th and have a shutdown inning and at least earn the win. He's not getting that chance. So is he an ace? Like, to me, Aaron Nola should be an ace. A couple years ago when he had that 19-win season or whatever it was with a 2.3 ERA, he was an ace. But even that season could have been better if he wasn't restricted by the confines of today's Major League Baseball mentality.
Well, that was kind of my point going into 2019 when he kind of like, quote unquote, had a regression season. A lot of that had to do with the coaching staff that the Phillies had. Because let's face it, that was Gabe Kapler regime. And those guys, that's what they preached. They preached bringing in relief pitchers in like the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th innings.
Well,
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that was Gabe Kapler was the perfect, like, component of that, that use. And it was the same way with hitting. And, he kind of ruined Rhys Hoskins and quite a few other of the young Phillies players. So my point is that this analytics stuff is almost kind of like, it's so detrimental to what makes a player kind of get better, because it's like going against what the old school way of thought was, like, as far as hitting, making contact, not trying to hit the ball over the wall all the time. And a lot of times these guys get in these slumps because they are trying to hit home runs and all they do is pull the ball.
Yep.
And then they go in long-term slumps. Like, I mean, I've seen Bryce Harper have it happen. I've seen quite a few good major league hitters go into long-term slumps because they can't get out of it because they're so used to trying to drive the ball out of the ballpark. Just like
the whole thing with analytics and everything you just said, it's a self-defeating prophecy. Because clearly we've shown just with the pitching examples, teams are losing games every single night in the bullpen. It's an epidemic in the sport, and I just don't understand how it's become acceptable or logical. It's like to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result is the definition of insanity. What are we doing here? Guys are losing games every night in the bullpen. So, I mean, I think everybody running the sport is jokers. How about that? I'll leave you with that. Anyway, we were going to get into something tonight. We're going to bring back the pick of the week.
Oh, hell yeah. I missed it.
Yeah.
We had, this segment called the pick of the week when we first started the podcast. And, it's basically, a great album or a book or, a band or a genre of music that we kind of want to highlight. So why don't you start us off, Aaron, with yours?
All right. So welcome back to Pick of the Week. My pick of the week, bro. It's an album I just started. I always used to listen to it when it came out back in like 94, I guess it was. Or maybe I think it was 94. It's a band called Widowmaker. It was Twisted Sisters. It was Dee Snider from Twisted Sister's band after he left Twisted Sister. They had 2 records. The record I'm going to highlight today is Stand By for Pain. Bro, it's a phenomenal, phenomenal record. It's got Al Pitrelli on guitar, who later played in Megadeth. He's got amazing guitar work on this record. It's got so many great songs. One of my favorite tracks on the album is called Iron Will. The record's called Stand By for Pain. The band's Widowmaker. Dee Snider sounds as good as he ever did on this record. But here's a big difference. Twisted Sister was more, straightforward riff rock. It wasn't really technical. This is a much more technical record. Obviously, Al Pitrelli's a great player. It's not progressive metal. It's nothing like that. It's not thrash metal. It's definitely just a heavy metal record, but it's definitely more technical. It's definitely heavy. Stand By for Pain's a great track. Bad Rain's a great track. My personal favorite, like I said, is a song called Iron Will. So that's my pick of the week. The band's Widowmaker. The album's called Stand By for Pain. I know it's on Amazon Music if you have access to that, but definitely check the record out. Widowmaker, Stand By for Pain. That's my pick of the week, bro.
That's a hot album. You turned me on to that. So
I think I did. I remember that. Yeah,
you did. I've listened to it quite a few times, and it's up my alley because I love the heavy stuff.
Yep, it's a good record.
Yeah. So anyway, my pick of the week, I'm actually gonna kind of do a selfish plug to a band that we were supposed to have a guest from this band a couple weeks back, and unfortunately we had technical difficulties, but I want everybody to know that we are still going to have Phil Sandoval on. I've actually been speaking to him, and he's going to come on the show. He's just been really busy with some stuff. So I do have an announcement after my pick of the week, but my pick of the week is actually Armored Saint's newest album called Punching the Sky. It came out last year for those of you that haven't heard it yet. Phenomenal record. Quite a few people have actually said it was the best metal album in 2020, including me. I know I let you hear it, Aaron, and I know you're pretty high on it. It's definitely like, an old school vibe. It definitely brought me back to, traditional Armored Saint. And everything about it, it's just a kick-ass record from top to bottom. It's got the classic lineup on it, and couple songs, Standing on the Shoulders of Giants and End of the Attention Span. They're the 1-2 punch, probably the best 1-2 punch I've ever heard on an Armored Saint record. And I heard some great records from them, so that's saying a lot. My personal favorite is Lone Wolf, and to me, that's the masterpiece. But the entire record is just phenomenal. If you haven't heard it, called Punching the Sky, and it's by Armored Saint. And like I said, speaking of Armored Saint, I did get some breaking news from Phil, and I'm going to share it with you guys. The band is actually filming a video as we speak, and that video will be released very shortly. So be on the lookout for that, guys. You won't want to miss it.
We won't reveal what song it's
Yeah, I'm not allowed. He did tell me, but I'm not allowed to reveal the song. But I know you have some news, Aaron, too, about a guest that we're having.
Oh, yes. Next week, you're not going to want to miss it. Next Thursday night, we're going live at 8 p.m. What is that? April 15th, right? Yes. Next Thursday is April 15th, and we're going to be live. I'm just triple checking that. Thursday, April 15th. 8 p.m. live. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Do not miss it. We're going to have a very special guest, Mr. Mark Tornillo from TT Quick fame and Accept fame. Going to be a great show. Mark Tornillo next week, 8 p.m. He's also a diehard Mets fan, so I'm looking. So that's my announcement. Anyway, brother, it's been a great show.
Dude, as always, it's always a pleasure coming on here with you. And excellent show, and we're looking forward to next week's. So, rock on.
Hell yeah, rock on.
Peace out.
And that's our show. Tune in next time for more Sports and Metal with Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage. Woo, yeah! Got something to say? Hit us up at sportsandmetal0423 at yahoo.com or on Twitter at sportsandmetal.